Good evening. It's Wednesday, the October 16th of 2019, 6:30 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Guilford Selectboard. I'd like to recognize our public. Hello, public. And would you like to introduce yourselves?
Steve Lepke.
Erin Rodgers.
Do you have any affiliations specifically?
I'm here to talk about the vulnerable populations, Tabletop.
And I work for Trout Unlimited.
Thank you. Great. And the rules of procedure, which we don't have to read out loud, are on the table here. The rules of procedure govern how the public and the select board interact in regard to asking questions and making comments and statements. And they're there for you to see. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Not for me.
Any changes to the order of the agenda?
Yes, the Guilford Free Library VCDP grant update has been postponed due to some unforeseen circumstances.
Okay, and do we have a rescheduled time?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. All right, and I'm looking for, has everyone read the minutes? And can we approve the minutes?
I will move that we approve the minutes.
I shall second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously accepted. And Danny, a highway update on general and on the loader.
Well, we're still setting culverts, as you know. We're on
As we
Juror
know.
doing culverts.
Yes.
We've been doing some grading, but it's been pretty dry. And last week we did some grading, but I had a chloride, which we never chloride this time of year, so we're just holding off until we get some wet weather. We got some more roads to do. The tractor has been fixed. We're still mowing, blowing leaves. We'll be blowing leaves until snow flies. All the equipment's ready for winter, somewhat. Sand shed's full. The only thing I gotta do is order a load of salt, to start off with, and that part we should be in pretty good shape.
Great.
Excellent.
Well, you're doing a great job on our road.
Yes, you are.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably at least 5 more culverts up there we gotta do.
Up at Packer Corners?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But they're beyond our crossroads, right?
No, we're working our way back down the hill now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
9 to 12. Closing. The road will be closed 9 to 12 on certain days?
yeah, on certain days. Tomorrow, we won't be doing nothing tomorrow because
Okay.
Friday because it's gonna be crappy weather, so
Yeah, it's gonna
next
be
week we'll
pouring.
hope to start again. But we've been doing a lot of culverts. The little machine's been busy and it's working out real well.
Good.
So,
Well, I can attest that the road crew, everyone touched our road over the time of the culvert being done and all the other work, and then Jim came through with the mower and the tractor once it was fixed, but they did an amazingly great job. They really did. They were very considerate and helpful, and
Well, when
it
you
looks
get a
awesome.
little road like the one lane, you only got one way
Right,
in and one,
right.
it's kinda hard to do a culvert and try to keep traffic going.
Exactly.
So that's why I pick a couple hours in the morning, do what we gotta do, and then we do the headers and stuff after that, so. It takes time when you only get one culvert done a day, so I mean, it's, especially you gotta compact them the right way, and we've been having some of the first plastic culverts we put in years ago.
Right.
And they've been failing, because I know why they've been failing, because everybody was in a hurry to get somewheres. We just threw them in and just sort of compacted them just with the wheel of the backhoe.
Right.
Now we really compact them and make sure we got the depth over them, and so they've been doing right. And I've been using a different culvert, which is a little more stronger. You know, they're not black. Some places I use the black, some places I use the gray. The gray's more heavy duty culvert, so.
Great job.
Okay, then on to the loader. When you talk about the loader, Danny, could you give us the context of what's the story with the present loader so that people can hear?
Yeah, I mean, we're on our capital budget.
Yeah.
In their 10-year cycle, and our loaders due. I got prices. I had 3. I hadn't heard from the Komatsu guy, so I got 2 prices of the John Deere and the Volvo. And I went and looked at them, tried them out. Our loader is 10 years old, it's got almost 4,000 hours on it, and the Volvo is a higher price. The John Deere, believe it or not, is $2,000 more than what we paid for it 10 years ago. So, and everybody likes the John Deere, and that's what we'd like to go with, is the John Deere.
So that's your recommendation?
Yeah, that's what I'm recommending to the board.
And we're not gonna wait for the Komatsu bid?
He had plenty of time,
Yeah,
so tonight was the night, so.
Yeah.
so,
They've all known for several weeks.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on that?
You do.
Okay,
you
so would you like us to make it the approval of that
I think
purchase?
one other quick thing that we would want to note is, as I told the select board at the last meeting, in the past 3 years, Dan has spent over $25,000 in repairs on the current loader. So, you know, it's
No, thank
a
you.
substantial amount of the cost of this new one.
What are we doing with the old loader?
Trading. You've got a piece of paper there that tells
Okay.
you what the trading
Yeah,
value
it's on
is.
there. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the John Deere, they got one sitting on a lot, could be
Excellent.
delivered next week, whenever, so.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we approve this new John Deere loader that Dan has researched for purchase.
Do I hear a second?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dan, for getting
Motion
that.
carries.
The only thing you have to do, Richard, is just sign that paper that Peter, or the board has to, or
You should probably,
just somebody just initial it,
I
or
mean-
John Hancock it, or.
Yeah,
I mean, I've done it in the past if you want me to do it.
no, you can do it.
Okay.
Very good, thank you, Dan.
And Ron, you're the one that seconded? Yes.
That price on that loader is a little negotiable too.
Wow.
Good. I'm working.
So are we getting, just a question, are we getting the $65,000 in trade-in?
That's correct.
That's going to the.
That's
the gross
including that
price
total
purchase.
price that you got.
Ah, right.
That price that you have on the paper?
Yeah,
It's
90,
the total.
Yep, that's
That's the
that's
total
what
that's-
includes the trading.
with the trade.
Trading, the warranties, everything.
Okay,
The Komatsu, your warranties were separate. It was add-ons. So, I mean, not the Komatsu, but the Volvo.
and we should emphasize that this has been capitalized previously, so.
Plan,
we-
plan
yeah,
purchase.
We've expected it. Excellent.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dan.
Dan.
On to new business. Erin, hi, you want to come up and talk to
Sure,
us?
come public, sure.
Why don't you pull it, yeah.
Pull it, sure.
Sure.
And introduce yourself to the
Studio.
To the studio
audience. The people of Guilford.
Oh my goodness. So I am Erin Rodgers. I work for Trout Unlimited, which is a nonprofit organization that works to conserve, protect, and restore cold water fisheries and the watersheds that are, encompass them. So I work for the national branch as a restoration scientist, and basically I cover most of New England, so Vermont, Western Mass, into New Hampshire, and then I've got a counterpart over in New Hampshire that kind of takes a bit more of the eastern half of New England. But one of the grants that I recently received is working to work with southern Vermont towns who are specifically coming up on revising their hazard mitigation plans to come up with basically culvert prioritization for vulnerable culverts that are costing money, that are creating barriers for aquatic organism passage, that are creating flood resilience problems. And
Is that grant,
basically,
excuse- is the grant from Trout Unlimited?
so we received the grant from the National Fish and Wildlife
Oh, okay.
Foundation. Yeah. And then taking that prioritization, taking, 2 or 3 of the top culverts that are on that list and basically creating 30% design plans. So very rough draft, kind of restoration plans that go back to the town that can be integrated into the hazard mitigation plan. That the town can use as they would like, whether they would like to, bring that to another engineering firm, whether they would like to continue working with Trout Limited to do those replacements, whether you just want to have them on the books so that in terms of pre-disaster mitigation funds, it becomes a really good leverage piece for the town to go after those municipally available funds through the state FEMA representative. Or if it's in the hazard mitigation plan and a disaster does occur, then FEMA will then replace to that higher standard instead of just replacing in kind with what was there, which has generally been their practice up till now. So it's quite a bit of benefit to you guys, and basically it would be, you know, an evening with me to kind of go through the culverts that are in the town, preferably, you know, having the highway super as well, maybe a couple of members from the Conservation Commission as well if they'd like to attend, to kind of work through where the problem areas are, which ones are, you know, the greatest kind of linchpin for the town roads here. And then I'd go out with some of my field staff, do an engineering survey and return some plans to you folks within, you know, a couple weeks to a month. And kind of the timeline on that can also vary depending on when your hazard mitigation plan is being updated. So I saw that was on the list of later discussions and updates. So if that's happening fairly quickly, then I can try and turn that around at a pretty, you know, quick pace. Or if you've got a couple months before that is, you know, kind of getting worked through and finalized, then, you know, I can have a little bit more flexibility in terms of.
You've got plenty of flexibility.
Oh, good.
We're just getting started on it.
Oh, fantastic.
It's December 3rd, isn't it?
No, September 3rd of next year is.
Oh,
when
okay.
it's,
Is your revision?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, you're good.
So let me just understand this.
Sure.
So if we decide to go ahead with this, and why would we not, then you would work with our road commissioner, let's say, some members of the Conservation Commission and other interested people to identify the most vulnerable culverts in the town, and then replace them with bigger culverts, or, I mean, or not that you would do that, but make a plan to replace them with bigger culverts. Is that my understanding?
Yes. So a lot of the times the problem that we see is that culverts are undersized for really anything over pretty much a 25-year storm, which doesn't really mean that it's, you know, only happens every 25
Right.
years, but there's a 25% chance that it'll happen in a given year. So basically when we're resizing structures, we try and create open bottom structures, which is preferable for all sorts of aquatic organisms trying to get upstream and downstream. And we also size them to a minimum of 1.2 times the banks of the stream. So that way it gives the stream some flexibility in where it can go, as well as how much water it can physically pass through at any given time. So on really big floods, you know, it's not creating a bottleneck at that culvert because it's not being able to pass all the water through. It's allowing a lot more water to go through, as well as, you know, sediment, small debris, large debris in some cases. So we try and make it reasonably sized for the stream that it's on.
I have several questions. Just, so the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation gave Trout Unlimited the grant, and is the grants for identification of the vulnerable culverts and not the work on the culverts?
Right, so the state of Vermont, and you know, we've actually done a lot of the work with the state of Vermont to do all the culvert assessments. So we've already gone out, the work has been done on the ground to, you know, measure all the culverts to figure out where the aquatic organism passage barriers are. When we're doing those measurements, we're also looking at what's called the geomorphic compatibility. So how much erosion and scour and kind of places where it's likely to fail. And so that's actually all kept on an online state database through ANR, which, you know, we can access at any time, and which is one of the tools that I use during these prioritizations for sure. So the grant is paying basically for my time to work with all of you and then to go out and, you know, create the 30% design plans.
Right, and so the cost of the replacement of the culverts is the town's responsibility.
Yes, or you can continue working with us or, another organization. And we're very good at sourcing funds, especially if it is on a cold water resource stream.
Does TU actually do restoration, culvert work?
Yes.
They actually do the work?
Yep, so we're a full-service nonprofit organization. So we do everything from working with the state to do the assessments, we do the prioritizations, we do design and engineering. We have a full structural engineer on staff that works with us. We, oversee construction and we do grant sourcing for additional funds because we know these bigger structures are a lot more expensive, especially depending on where in the watershed they're located. They can be kind of tricky to work on.
Is it possible that some of these culverts are in Dan's plan? I mean, he's replacing culverts now?
Absolutely, there's probably a pretty good chance that some of these are overlapping, and makes it really easy in terms of, looking at things, looking what he's already replaced, looking at what he would like to replace. And that's why I always like to have the highway supervisors attend as well, because they know the culverts better than anyone. They know exactly where they're spending their money year after year, cleaning out or replacing or, doing any number of things. And so being able to put in a bigger structure that will defray a lot of that cost year after year can be really beneficial to a town.
Do we have any other questions?
The design of this culvert you're talking about compared to a typical plastic round culvert that we've been installing, just give me an idea of cost. Roughly, if it's I don't know, 25-foot culvert going across a road or whatever, and it's a 3-foot diameter.
Well, even if it's a 3-foot diameter pipe, the stream itself might be closer to 10 feet.
Okay.
So we'd probably build something that's 12 feet so that we're going just a little bit outside of the stream channel itself. Probably put it around 100,000.
Yeah, okay.
That's like what they're doing on Carpenter Hill. That's why they made them.
Yeah, where you can either take a
Narrower,
round pipe
they
and
went
you
wider.
can bed it, or you
We
can
got
just
two
do an
structures
arch.
going on right now, so.
Yeah.
And
So that's what
they
you-
widened them out.
Open
Yeah,
it all,
so
I see.
we got, that was
So
just
that's
AOT.
things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
pass around.
yeah, AOT has been definitely pushing a lot more of these because, especially on their roads, it saves them money in the long run too. They're not having to go around cleaning everything out, replacing things after big storms.
So you said that you had already done some work for the state.
Yes.
And so does that mean you've identified certain culverts around the state on state highways and so forth? Is that?
Yep, so Vermont Fish and Wildlife has hired us for a number of years to do the culvert assessments. And so we've basically looked at every culvert in the Deerfield watershed and in the lower Connecticut River all the way basically throughout Wyndham County.
That's a
So
lot
you
of
could-
culverts.
so that
It is a lot, we have
You-
done thousands of culverts.
So you already know in Guilford
Right.
which ones you're looking at, essentially.
Generally, it's been a couple of years, so it's one of those I'd have
I see.
to actually take a look to be like,
they're
all right, these are the ones that are
documented, aren't they?
actually, but everything is documented,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I see.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
what
kind of a
kind of-
review then of past work in a way, but coming in and getting a deeper look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you said, I mean, Dan's been replacing some things, so it's not like the state database is updated on a regular basis. So I don't necessarily know which things have been replaced already, where money has been already spent, so we can kind of factor that into the prioritization as well.
What action would we have to take on this? Just, do we have to come to an agreement with you?
I mean, I think we first, from what she was saying, first set up a meeting for her to
Yeah.
meet with likely me and Dan and some conservation commissioners and maybe one or two of you if you're interested.
Yeah.
And
But does it ultimately
see-
lead to an action step of an agreement
It
of some
may or may
kind?
It may or may not.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, but it would, if we were going to do this, we
Some
would
sort
need
of a
to.
contract
Yes.
Yeah,
view.
yeah.
If you'd like, sure.
That's right, okay.
But basically, I would like to, either, have you guys agree on something, and then if we can, even schedule a rough time, whether it's during a meeting like this, or whether we schedule out for a different night of the week if, people are available.
So we'd have to agree that we'd want to meet, right? This group would have to agree that we'd want to meet and do
Well, I mean, if
this.
you want the
I don't
whole
think we need
select
an
board,
action.
No, we don't need an action, but we could just say that we are agreeing that we want to meet or we don't want to meet, right?
Well, this expertise, at
Yes.
least, those steps have already been taken. It's like a gift to the people and the wildlife of Guilford.
So do we all
already.
agree that we would like to meet further?
Sure.
Okay, good.
I mean, it also fits in that late next spring, we're going to be working with the regional commission to update our culvert map, because it hasn't been updated in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's
So,
timely because of
which-
the updating of the hazard mitigation plan.
They're separate. They will benefit the hazard mitigation plan, but it's going to be separate from it. And so the map that you likely got your data from is our old map, and so it's out of date.
Yes.
So can I ask that you work out a couple of date options for the meeting with,
Yep, I'll schedule
Erin?
something with Erin.
Sounds good.
terrific. Thank you, Erin.
Absolutely.
And thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Well,
It's
in
nice,
terms of
I
the
just live over in
public-
Brattleboro, so it's nice to actually
Right.
work
Oh,
with somebody
excellent.
right next door instead of like a community 3 hours away.
Steve, you have a question?
Erin, typically, how long do the meetings last?
I generally try and aim for about 2 hours. And that covers a lot of the discussion, end to end, and usually has a pretty good resolution by the end of it.
Dan, was there anything you wanted?
No, I'd like to see what she's got on the list.
Good.
To me.
Yeah.
See what you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for coming, Erin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our next item on the agenda, which is the municipal policies approval for the VCDP grant.
So you folks have seen this before. I shared it with you over the weekend. So this is a state form. A lot of it is boilerplate language, but it is the select board acknowledging that the town of Guilford is an equal opportunity employer, that we have a fair housing policy, as well as excessive force policy, as well as for use of VCDP funds, and that you agree to the code of ethics by the Vermont Community Development Program, as well as that the town is a drug-free workplace, and that you agree to be bound by the subrecipient oversight monitoring policy.
Does that require signatures?
Sounds like fun.
It does require signatures, but after you make a motion to approve this.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the VCDP municipal policies
And codes.
codes?
I will make a motion to
Do I have a
approve
second?
the
I will second that motion.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
You kindly sign, please.
And for our listening public, the VCDP grant is for the study of the feasibility of adding an addition on to our library, so it's just studying the feasibility of that. Okay, great. Algiers Village Collaborative Select Board Representative. Do you want to speak to that, Peter?
Sure. So for the past couple of years, our former chair, Sheila Morse, has acted as a select board representative for the Algiers Village Collaborative, which is a group of 4 nonprofits who meet on a semi-regular basis to discuss a variety of things happening in Algiers Village, as well as to promote kind of their vision and dreams and goals for what happens in the village, as well as Guilford as a whole. Thank you. So as Sheila has resigned from the select board, they no longer have a select board representative that meets with them. And one of their representatives contacted me and asked if the select board was interested in sending someone else. And that's up to you folks.
And when Peter and I discussed this, I have a question of why we should provide representation to that group. Not that it's not a benign group, it's a very useful group, but I don't think it's the select board's role to send representatives to every nonprofit in the town of Guilford. So
Are there any other organizations in which we have that kind of relationship, another model, or is this the only one like that?
I'm not aware.
This is, I'm sorry.
This is
I
not a
didn't mean to
municipal,
interrupt.
yeah, this is not a town commission. This is a nonprofit. We have a lot of nonprofits in town.
Well, this is a collaborative of, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine their thinking.
Yeah, sure.
This is a collaborative, you know, of how many nonprofits?
4.
4 nonprofits. So that's different from, let's say, the Friends of Music at Guilford wanting a select board representative. You know, what would be the point? But perhaps it was the fact that those nonprofits are doing work that benefits a significant part of the town, you know, the sort of gateway to Guilford. That's what I would imagine.
So I'm interested in the process aspect of the question. You know, do we provide select board representation when all the select board members have lots to do to nonprofits? Sheila was on that board because she was part of several of those nonprofits, so that made sense. I'm not even sure that she was acting as a select board representative. I think she might have been,
I think she might have actually been on them earlier.
yeah.
She was on them prior to being a select board member.
I just think it's a precedent that we have to be careful of because
I agree with you.
there's no, I mean, it's not a municipal collaborative. They're doing wonderful things
Sheila
and
would
important things, but I
Might
don't.
continue,
Yeah.
even though she's not a select board.
Well, I have a suggestion. It could be that we could invite them to make a report, you know, schedule a time to make a report to the select board, and if they have specific issues that they want us to know about, they could go through Peter and let us know
I think that's a great
what
idea.
they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want them to feel as if we don't care about that work. It's just that we don't see a specific role for us.
For the select
So
board, yeah.
supposedly communication and collaboration would be the point.
So how do we feel about that? That we would ask them to come like other groups come to the select board and give us a report, and we can give them input and feedback at that time about if they have a matter that concerns the select board or needs the select board's input.
Makes sense to me.
Yep.
I agree.
So be it. Thank you. Good suggestion.
So would that be, Peter, would this be you responding to them and
Yep, I'll just-
making that offer?
Yep, I'll just respond to them. They knew it was gonna be on the agenda tonight, and they were just curious to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, cordially invited.
Personally, I think it's a good choice. I think it'd be kind of a slippery slope to get on. I mean, technically, you guys don't even need to have a select board representative on each of the commissions.
We don't?
Don't. It's kind of been, I think you know
It's our Guilford tradition, though.
that much better than I as a Guilford tradition.
And in this instance too, I don't think Sheila's gonna step off her roles. She's involved with these organizations
I know
anyway.
for sure.
And I think
she's
she
involved with
could come to the select board and offer up that type of synopsis very easily.
You know, I can just let them know that even our own town commissioners come and report to the
That's
select
correct,
board.
right.
And that they would be welcome to do so as well.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you. Excellent. Steve, vulnerable population tabletop exercise. Peter.
He's gonna put this on me now.
Oh,
Steve and I were
You
both,
put it on the agenda, that'd be.
you have 5 minutes.
okay, I'll take 2 and Steve can have 3.
Well, why don't you come up here, Steve?
Join us.
So Steve and I were both at a vulnerable populations tabletop exercise up in Putney hosted at their fire department. I was there representing Guilford. Steve was there representing Guilford as a WRC board member, right?
Yeah, and one Well, now that I said you start, I'll start.
Steve, could you
See, I knew
just-
all I
See
had to do
Steve
was
come to the
say
table.
He's a sly
I
one.
see the wallowing.
No,
going
but
on.
Steve, could you just explain like in 2 sentences
I'll-
to
yeah.
what this is for other people?
One of the committees that the Wyndham Regional Commission has is an emergency planning committee.
Yes.
And as a member of the board, the executive board of WRC, each of the executive board members are expected to chair a committee, and I chair the emergency planning committee. And one of the first projects that has been fairly vocal was the vulnerable population side of things for all of the Wyndham County towns. And for any of you who were back in the December meeting two years or so ago, vulnerable populations came up as an issue, and I remember talking to Jared Bristol about it, and I've had some conversations with him in the past. And this, knowing who the vulnerable populations are, it's not just elderly. It's it could be somebody who's released from a hospital and has something, but in an emergency, they're vulnerable. So Alyssa Sabeto is the primary person with WRC. She's been drawing up a thing called a telephone, emergency telephone protocol that would eliminate an old list sitting with the fire department that is out of date the minute they get it. And what it really means is that the social service organizations like Beata and hospice organizations, Guilford Cares and others, would have their client list. If there's an emergency, they would have, their protocol would be that they would contact their population, and if any of that population is vulnerable, then they would contact, in this case, Peter, who's the emergency management director. So this was an idea that then came to some rough planning within the Wyndham Regional Commission offices, and then it was done was tested as a full day, 6-hour tabletop in Putney, and then subsequently was taken to a round table of EMDs and fire department people and the service organizations in Londonderry. So that's where it is now. And so there is physically a telephone protocol that's in place right now that's being updated by Wyndham Regional Commission and will be in a position where people can update it themselves based on changes of telephone numbers and things. So like Peter would be on it as the EMD, and if his telephone number changes or something happens. So there's two things that happen. The list of the vulnerable population will be always current and communicated with the EMDs. And secondly, this chart of EMDs and fire department people, 1 or 2 contacts per town will be circulated among everybody. It will be a Google document where everybody could go in and see it and correct it as need be.
So.
We also need to, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Make clear that the list of the vulnerable population is strictly controlled as to who can see it and when people can see it. So it's not something that's going to be spread around.
It's actually people's names and addresses.
It is people's names and addresses, that is correct. And so for those who are on that list for health reasons, it's regulated by HIPAA regulations as far as who can see it and when and under what circumstances. And so that is going to be tightly controlled by the social service agencies that Steve was referencing. And that list will only be distributed to EMDs, fire departments, whomever is going to be contacted in the event of emergency that they cannot either physically get to or contact their client.
I was somewhat amazed by how positive this was in every one of the populations that were at the table, from the service organizations to the EMDs, to the fire department, to the state. Sent a person down and said, we want to do this throughout the whole state, we'll look for funding. So it was I think it will be a really positive thing, but as Alyssa said at the last meeting, it's in place now, and the people who, it will only be of use if people actually use it. Mm-hmm. But I can't think of a reason why somebody wouldn't use it, because, and again, to reiterate, that's a very valuable point, Peter, there will be no longer any list of names and addresses and reasons sitting in any one place, in any one file.
Nope.
It will only be those people who are vulnerable based on the assessment of the service provider at the time.
And the main list that Steve was referring to, just for additional clarity, is the list of all EMDs as well as secondary contacts such as fire chiefs, police chiefs, whomever it is in that specific town after the EMD should be contacted. So that is the list that's going to be spread around throughout Windham County.
Did you have a question or comment?
I had a question which was, I mean, I appreciate the confidentiality of the list. I'm wondering whether there are ways that if, not everybody who is vulnerable has interacted with one of those organizations. And I was thinking, I mean, many years ago, we had neighborhood meetings where people identified people who were vulnerable in, you know, in their neighborhoods. And it might be, like something that we could at some point put in the Guilford Gazette, you know, just saying, know your neighbors. If there's anybody, you know, in your neighborhood who you have a concern about, you know, get in touch with such and such a person.
Do those vulnerable people give their permission to be listed as vulnerable?
I want to say yes, because the service people have a discussion with them and say, what do you know, what if it's oxygen or out of electricity? I mean, there are different motivators. Some people don't want to be bothered.
Right.
They just don't, and that's fine as long as they've been contacted and they feel independent enough to do it. That's fine. But if it turns into a situation where the service provider can't get in touch with somebody because the lines are down and things like that, they say to the fire department, we know from experience that this person has 3 days worth of oxygen and 3 days worth of this. At that point, it could become a situation. So
Any questions or further discussion?
The last point I wanted to bring up with this is that one of the big things that came out of this is that if you have friends or family or neighbors who you believe falls in vulnerable, whether it's whether it's elderly or ill, you know, someone with mental health disorder, whatever, to consider talking to them about signing up for Vermont 211, which is a service that the state provides that is all voluntary. So no one's forcing you to sign up for this, but it provides your information in the event of an emergency. If you don't have a family member or a neighbor who can check on you, that your information can be put out there in the event of emergency.
I think, you know, to answer your question, Verena, I think a great Gazette article would be the several things that people can do to protect themselves as they assess their own vulnerability, which I think gives them the opportunity, the power, the control of saying, I would like help or not.
So maybe you'd like to write it.
I know Peter would.
And Vermont 211
Maybe you
is a
could
big step in that.
co-author.
So if say a person were to sign up at Vermont 211, does that give some sort of entree to a social service agency then to make a connection?
No, that information only goes to, is controlled by Vermont 211 and is only distributed to emergency services in the event of an emergency.
But it does identify them as potentially vulnerable.
Correct.
So, in other words, it answers the question that you're saying. For those people who are between the cracks, they're vulnerable, but nobody really knows how vulnerable they are. They have this opportunity to do this, and then they will show up. That's where the fire department then goes up through a 911 situation and comes back down through. It's a very workable, but
so it's a way
Couldn't
for them to
we
get
put
into
that
this.
211 information on the town website?
We can. One of the big, and you can sign up online. We, at the roundtable in London area, representative from Vermont 211 was there, and she did, I thought, an excellent presentation. One of the points that she did really reiterate is they also have a paper form, because they know that in Vermont, a lot of families don't have access to internet or don't want to use a computer. And so they do have paper forms, and so we can both print them out here at the town office, as well as we can get some color printed ones.
I was thinking of an announcement about the fact that this
Absolutely.
exists, not an entryway into making the, registering.
I'd also like to set up something with Leah Gessner and have the one from 211 come down here at the
Oh, senior hangout?
Well, yeah, senior hangout would be great, but even more sort of formally to do that, because people should know that their relatives can sign up for this too. Sometimes the individuals, even if they know it, don't do it, so somebody can help them do it.
Facilitate.
Right.
I see.
But it has to be a family member or somebody who.
So potential action steps, I hear a co-authored article in the Guilford Gazette. Peter, can you prepare something for the town?
Yep.
For the town website? Also, who would like to contact Leah or?
I'll handle,
Okay.
getting in touch with those two and see if we can, if they think it's a good idea and when we could do it. I know everybody's busy, but this kind of thing, if you do it a couple times over a 2-year period or something, it can save lives.
Thanks very much.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is at least the third time in the time that I've been here that vulnerable populations have been brought up to the select board, so.
Well, we have some action steps to work on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
The next item on the agenda is a select board representative at the, representatives, I should say, at the Cat 4 exercise, and it's on October 24th.
Yeah, so we don't need to, so we don't need to go on and on about the
No, we don't.
category 4 exercise, since Sheila has done such a good job of
Yeah.
telling us all about it. So, next Thursday, yep. It would be good if we could have, 1 or 2 select board members at this exercise. I'm gonna be there, Dan's gonna be there.
I'll be there.
I'm gonna try to be there.
Okay, so there we
So
go.
we've got-
What time is?
Introduction starts at 9:30. The state representative will give us instructions as to what's going to happen. And then promptly at 9:30, the exercise will begin. And I believe it goes until 3:30 is when it ends. And then there's going to be a wrap-up from 3:30 until 4. And lunch will be provided by the state.
Where is this?
It's going to be happening in this very room.
Oh, and it's the Thursday, the 24th,
That's correct.
starting
And
at
so for
9:30.
those of you who are not present, we need to have either an email address or a cell phone number that we can, or home phone if you're going to be at home. But just to test the phone tree, in the event of emergency, we would need to reach out to the select board members to let you know. It's not going to take, if you're not present, it will take 1 to 2 minutes of your time to say, yes, I received your email, or, text back saying, yep, I'm here, you can call me.
Right.
So you won't actually need to take any action, it just respond back to whatever manner someone contacts you at.
Okay, so we have our
Okay,
representatives.
so I can come, except that I have to leave early.
We have 2, so already, but everyone's welcome.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
no,
if it's-
you can only have 2 because
Oh, okay,
it
then I'll
is
take it off
not a
my
warrant
calendar.
select board meeting. So we cannot have
Oh,
more than
That's
2 of you.
right. So you and I
Okay.
will be there.
Okay, I'll be happy to.
But if you
do that.
said you may be there,
No, there's I should be able to
okay,
be
you're
there.
making a commitment.
No, I've made the commitment.
Okay.
What
well,
Was that the last one?
What is this training? I'm just.
It's
very
not a
briefly-
training.
Or, this exercise?
It's a tabletop exercise going through all the pieces if there was a natural disaster or some sort of issue that came up. So what they do is they pull together, the powers to be in the town, that Jared, will, and whoever else from the fire department, they'll have some people there. But, and I'm amazed this is done on a Thursday with like the last one, but, okay.
Yeah, fire department won't be there because they're gonna be at work, their regular jobs.
Okay. So it will just be the select board and,
Select board and Dan and me, and Rich Cogliano is gonna come down.
he's coming back down.
Yep.
Good. Well, Rich was there. So anyway, they go through just the motions so that
think
the
it's a
people
flood, isn't
involved
That's correct.
It's
have
a
an
flow.
understanding if there was a significant issue that did come up.
So we're gonna have.
What do we do in response?
So it's, in the 30-second version, so if Richard can move on, is, there's gonna be a severe rainstorm with flooding. There's a bridge is gonna wash out on one road, and a road is gonna wash out in another area of town, and how we react to this. What are the steps that we take to react to this?
Nothing we ain't done before.
Exactly.
All right, we're moving on. Town fair update.
We don't need it.
How about a brief update on the town fair, Peter?
So, Michael can chime in on this
Oh,
as well.
Michael,
So,
yes.
So to
Penny, Michael, and I attended the VLCT Town Fair, and it's one of those, it's their big annual event where they have their annual meeting, and then there's a variety of different workshops throughout the day that we sign up to attend. Most of the ones I personally attended were excellent. I attended 3 on technology and cybersecurity type issues, and Penny was there with me on 2 of them. In brief, there are certainly things that we can do within the town office to improve our situation. That being said, we are in a very, very good position. We're in a much better position than many other towns in the state. So I think that was very encouraging. That the things that we do need to do are definitely helpful, but they're relatively minor. And these are
Why
from,
are we in such a good position?
I think initially because of a base that was put in place when our computer system was set up here in the office, and then just in the time that I've been here, I've been continuing on with adding things to that and doing some additional things. And also just working with my colleagues to make sure that, we don't click on links and, unknown emails, that we keep our antiviruses going, for the office going, and things like that,
Yeah,
and
okay.
other stuff.
Michael, what did you, what sections
I
did
made a
you?
little list here of all the
Oh.
workshops I went to. Accounting practices, but worthwhile, just for me to have a better sense of the process. Innovative library usages, which was really fun to see what libraries do all around the state. I'd be happy to share that at another time. Enforcing town ordinances. I learned a little more about how that's done.
What was that number 2? It was
Yeah,
interesting.
is it the Vermont Judicial Board?
Yep.
Like, that was a new one for me, learning what they do, and that they take a significant sort of cut from the fine. So that, to me, was something we need to look out for, is if we have fines for ordinances that don't even cover what the Vermont Judicial Board takes to process, doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I think they take, what, $42.50 or something like that? And
That's
so
the minimum, yeah.
if you had an ordinance and the fee was only $20,
Losing money.
yeah, so.
Goodness.
Good to
yeah,
know.
so those
That's
are
good to know.
My
Yeah.
my main takeaways, I guess.
Good.
But yeah, I'm glad I went. It was-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next item on the agenda, the hazard mitigation plan process and the plan that we need to have by next September.
Yes, so as I let you folks know previously, last week I went and met with Melissa Sabetto at Wyndham Regional to just kind of get an idea of, first of all, as Richard said, for her to help me put together a kind of a timeline as far as what needs to be done and when. And she's, 2 quick things that she said. One is, we've got so much time to get this done right now that we don't really need to worry about that. And the other thing is that she said that's somewhat getting ahead of ourselves, is to kind of set up a timeline at the moment. So that being said, the first thing that we really need to do is I need to start working on redrafting a number of the sections within this plan. At the last meeting, Veranda volunteered to read through it, proofread it, and help in that manner. Michael, did you volunteer also,
Yeah.
I think? So that's the first.
As needed.
Yes.
Yes, as needed. And so that's the first main step. Once we have about a third of it done, then she wants me to send that to her so she can get an idea, just to make sure that we're on the right track. If she feels comfortable with where we're at, then we can continue in that process. And if some changes, it's basically for her to see that we understand the process and how it needs to be written, because there's the FEMAese and their language that they use. So that will be the first step, and then once she feels comfortable, we'll finish writing it, present it to her. She may need to get some additional feedback from us. We'll also have to set up a couple of public meetings for anyone who wants to give input on it. Then she will kind of wrap it up and give us the steps that we need to do to submit it to the state for their review. And once they review it, then they submit it to FEMA.
Right, so you've just given us a timeline. My request is that we have the timeline articulated so that the select board has those steps, and so we can all see those steps, and we will eventually, I would imagine, have dates, certain dates for those steps that need to be taken. You just laid it out. I'd just like to see it on a timeline so that we all can share it.
Sure. I mean, like I said, from what she was saying, that
We're early.
we're early.
Yeah.
You know, if we can, it has to be submitted to FEMA by on or before September 3rd next year, which means that it needs to be to the state approximately a month before that.
So I just want to see that in steps, that's all. Because I think that I'm unfamiliar with the steps of creating this. It's quite a job. It's a big
Sure.
plan.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're wanting that's different than what I just laid out.
It's not different.
Just
It's
putting it in
just
writing,
putting it
in a
writing,
document
putting it
form so that
you can
it can
even
be
do it as a
tracked and followed.
timeline, starting here.
I think he's just,
Yeah.
for clarity.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that will give all of us an idea of where we are in the plan to make sure that the plan gets done.
My apologies for
Place to
misunderstanding.
check.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
A place to check.
Yes,
so we can
exactly,
see
we've done that, we've done this, yeah.
Okay.
Just a series of actions.
Yep.
Thanks,
I'll put that together and I'll share that with all you.
Thank you.
Is there
Okay,
anything specific you're looking for from Miranda or myself at this point?
Not at this point. Probably within, I would guess within a month or so, I'll have written the first section, and just for you to proofread it, to make sure that it fits with, as far as the vision of the select board, as well as the town plan. So part of it is, we're updating the town plan as we speak. So this is actually, it puts us in a good position because we can do both at the same time, which benefits both sides. So,
I would also, you may all be very familiar with it and know it in memory, but I would suggest that you do review it to see if there's any suppositions in there that are hazards that you disagree with or that you feel have changed and things. Going through the old one gives you a lot of information before you try to, edit what Peter's written. It might be a good idea to thoroughly review the existing one.
thank you, that's a good
It's
suggestion.
a good point, as well as Alyssa did make some suggestions on those hazards, just because of changes that FEMA have made as far as what can and can't be included. So some of the things that were previously included no longer can or will be included in it, so that also affects it.
Well, I volunteered to offer some backup support because you had said that the old plan was rather hastily put together.
Yep.
And so it wasn't about your competence, it was just about upgrading what you were looking at.
Well, I think the first step for those of you who aren't familiar with it was to read the old one that I shared with you guys.
Right.
So there would be our first step of the timeline.
Yeah, for the select board members, yes. I've already read it 3 times.
Yeah, good. Well, I'll have to try to catch up. Okay, on to the grand juror.
So, with the unfortunate passing of Mert Garland, we are now down a grand juror in town, and in this circumstance, it falls on the select board to appoint a new one.
What are the responsibilities of the grand juror?
I don't actually know the answer to that question.
No,
so-
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay to ask.
I know, that's a good.
I don't think that it takes a lot of time.
It does not take a lot of time.
Is it to be available for grand juries?
I don't frankly know. That's an excellent
I
question.
didn't mean to put anybody on the spot.
No,
Sounds like
no,
we got a
okay,
lot
no,
of work to do.
I mean, this
I
is,
think we need to look into
I
it.
think that's.
So let's just appoint someone.
Well, let's see, grand juror.
In Vermont.
Well, yeah, as the state defines it as well.
Oh,
So how about we will table
Table
this
it.
and
Yes.
get more
Yes.
information?
Yes.
So we understand what the role and responsibility.
So, does someone want to bring us any information about?
I will bring that
Okay.
information
Thank
to
you.
the
The
select.
job description.
There is at least someone serving as one.
Oh, yes, we have 9 or 10 right now in town.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you interested in the position, Michael?
I think I'll pass. Thank you. Oh, I
I,
should learn more about what it is.
Well, we're going to get a job description. Okay, very good. We're on to warrants, Gordon.
I will make the motion to approve the following warrants. Payroll week ending 9/29/19 for $8,009.49. Payroll week ending 10/6/19 for $6,335.06. Payroll week ending 10/13/19 for $6,414.77. And expense warrant number 2007 in the amount of $370,315.15 for a grand total of $391,074.47. I would like to earmark some significant pieces to the expense warrant 2007 in that planned paving that has actually been planned for some time. The paving alone was $255,000, and the shoulders have yet to still be completed on that. But that was a very big piece of that. Looking at sand, gravel, and culverts, we're in the tune of about $32,000. Our general liability and general insurance came to about $12,000. The fire department final principal bond of $50,000 is included in that number, as well as the Algiers Fire Department water line, fire district, thank you, Miranda, of
no,
almost.
that's the water line, that's not the sewer line.
Oh, that isn't the sewer line? I thought it was the
That's
sewer
the
line.
water line.
Okay, so that's just the water line bond
Yes.
for $19,000, thank you. As well as our quarterly payment to Wyndham Solid Waste Management for about $4,000, $3.6 thousand. So those were the big pieces.
Thank you, Gordon. Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Oh, now on to communications, Peter.
Yes, so we've got several communications
Bye, Dan.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
The first is, I'm not going to read it, although it's short, but the first is just a nice thank you card from Guilford Cares for the donation that was made in Sheila's name
that's nice.
by you, the select board.
I should point out that's the second one we've got from Guilford Cares.
It is. There was also one here, another thank you letter from the Green River Village Preservation Trust, thanking you for the donation in honor of Sheila and her service to the town. Next on the list is that, Gordon, I think, were you the one that contacted Penny about taxes, or was that Richard? I don't remember which of you. One of you had been asking Penny about where we're at for taxes.
Not me.
Is that you? She said it was one of you two, and I don't remember which one.
We had a discussion about it,
Okay, anyway.
but I didn't ask a question.
She's wanted you to know that up until today, we had collected $5,339,382.35. And after today, she added an additional $967,377.47.
Holy
So-
Toledo.
$1 million day.
Yes, it was $1 million.
That's good.
She felt a little nervous going to the bank today. I mean, it was not all in cash, majority of it was in checks, but it was still a lot of money. So that puts us at $6,306,759.82. And for one more number to boggle your eyeballs, of that amount, $3,254,886.21 will be distributed to the school system.
Say that
So
one
what's-
more time, sorry.
$3,254,886.21 goes to the schools. In years past, she would have to write 2 checks. One check would go to our local school and the other check would go to the high school. Because of Act 46, it now all goes to one place.
What's the, just because I don't know, what, you said the number that we've collected so far, what number is budgeted to be collected? Do you know?
I would have to calculate a couple of numbers. It's just over $2 million between the town budget and the highway.
Yeah, but what
No, he's asking
Zod
for
was
the,
asking is, what was our
If
total
everybody
inclusive of
paid
the
their
school
taxes,
Oh,
revenue side, that
oh,
we're looking for, what's the
what's our
total?
expectation of the
I
total tax?
I don't calculate that number with the school. I can get those numbers because.
No, I guess that's sort of
We-
wondered if we're like at
If we're close.
82% or
I
97%.
think so.
No, I think she said this is one of the
After
highest that we've
Early.
gotten. She even
So
had,
people are, they're
Yes.
delinquent taxes.
yeah, there's always a few delinquents.
But
That being
this is
said-
very good.
She said that even today, she had 3 people who got delinquent notices for previous years came in and paid off their delinquencies.
Wow.
So she said in her 9 years that this is probably the best year that we've concluded the tax year on.
Wow.
The closest to 100% of
That's correct.
required taxes.
And because of the fact that we do such a good job in Guilford, even though we don't actually collect 100%. So with the taxes, the school always gets 100% of what they budget. It's the town that, when there's delinquencies, it's the town or the highway department that gets
We
shorted.
take the hit.
Thankfully, because of everyone involved here that like we talked about, even though we don't get 100%, we still manage to stay within our budget.
But this is due to a very strong focus on this issue
For the past
5 years ago, I would say, and it's really paid off.
You mean to
Because-
start dealing with delinquents?
Yes,
Yes.
just having a much more understood policy
I see.
And enforced policy.
and enforceability of it, yes.
Okay.
So we're in a very good position this year, and she's.
Penny has really driven this.
and so
Yeah,
we
paid
really
off.
should, acknowledge Penny's role
Oh, absolutely.
in the positive return for our school children and for the needs of the town.
Thank you, Penny.
She really has, she's.
Other communications?
Great.
Yes, there is a communication from an anonymous individual who lives on Tyler Road, which is a little bit confusing because they don't give their name. They sent this email to the town as well as to the state. I don't know what gender they are, want to know about the possibilities of putting some form of sign about the penalty for littering on Tyler Hill. This person recently purchased a house over there, and over the past 10 months, rubbish, TVs, couches, other household furniture have all been dumped next to their property, and they're getting a little tired, so they have
Wow.
invited the state and the town to a meeting to discuss the issue. No date or time is given for such meeting as of yet.
Game camera.
Whose job is responding to illegal dumping?
And if it's on a state road, then it's V-Trans. If it's in the town right-of-way on one of the town roads, it's our road crew. And
Wow.
they do a very good job of picking junk up. And unfortunately for irresponsible people, they get away with it.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, people get the hang of seeing it being picked up and taken care of, so they realize it's a nice place to dump stuff.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as we all know, Tyler Hill is right on the border between Vernon and Guilford. So it may be folks from Guilford who are dumping, and maybe folks from Vernon who are dumping, and maybe folks from Brattleboro who are dumping. We don't really know. But this individual is just very frustrated, and understandably so, that, trash is getting dumped in their dooryard.
Yeah, that's too bad, because Tyler Hill Road is one of the most beautiful roads.
Well, it seems to me that, this person's offering a solution. I keep saying she because you first said it, but.
Yeah, and that's my mistake. I do not know the gender of
This person is offering a solution But that might not be the only solution. Is
It
there
may
a
not.
discussion that should happen around something like this, or I don't know?
Like I said, they would like to have a meeting between the state and the town and them, and the email that was sent was very positive,
Yeah.
and that this individual is trying to find a solution instead of make accusations.
It's many months till Green Up Day.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And
They
I don't see
don't
what-
generally take TV sets at
No.
Green Up Day.
And I
No,
don't see what we can do with an anonymous
Right,
person.
exactly. How-
they do, the person did leave a phone number,
Oh,
but no name to, so.
And so who in the state would be contacted?
They
They did
contacted
contact.
Joseph Russo, and I, at the moment, do not know what Joseph Russo does for the state. Would have to look that up. But, any other questions about that? Do you want me to follow up with this individual?
I suppose it's courtesy
I
to
think
call
that
that person.
acknowledging
Yes.
it
Yeah,
from
I don't
the
know what we
select,
can do, but,
well, acknowledging the communication and appreciating the predicament,
mhm.
and perhaps we want to be kept abreast of the progress on this.
I mean, technically, it is a town road, it's not a state road.
Right.
And this person is a Guilford resident, and so,
So would you call that person and say, we acknowledge their letter and,
Would we express any willingness to attend a meeting?
I mean, you could send me or Dan or someone to meet with this individual, just, I mean, and the only recommendation they made is to put up a no littering sign and list the state fines for littering. Is there one, but they also want to know what other options are available.
I don't know what we could do to prevent people from throwing their televisions on Tyler Hill Road.
Exactly.
And Tyler Hill Road is not an exception. I mean, the weather on Hollow Road has got trash all
Yeah,
over it,
absolutely.
as you know.
Yes. Well, what about the, I mean, it strikes me that just a meeting of minds might come up with a different
I
solution.
mean, I can start
But that
by
should be an
responding to
informal
the individual.
Yes.
It shouldn't be a selection.
No, no.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think that's the intent of the email, is to have an informal meeting. And I can also talk to Dan and see what recommendations he may have.
Well,
He
and
may be
also
familiar with-
somebody out here among our viewers would have an idea about how to help neighborhoods keep on the lookout for illegal dumping, you know, just, we need to take care of each other, and there isn't one fix for this, but we can all do a little something.
Thank you. Any other
So,
communications?
Yes, one last one, and this might actually need a motion on your part. So as these two gentlemen noted when we first got started, I received communication from Wyndham Regional, from their commissioners, requesting a letter of support from the select board to conduct a feasibility study about broadband that would cover the entire Wyndham region.
Yes.
There's, the letter from them is quite long, so I won't read all of it. But they're applying for one of the state grants to do a feasibility study for all of Wyndham County, which would be amazing.
Be a lot easier.
So they sent a draft letter of support. I edited it and made it fit for Guilford. It's very brief. If you want, I'll read it to you, and then if you want to, or do you not care?
No, I would like you to read it.
So, on behalf of the town of Guilford Selectboard, I wish to express our commitment to the Wyndham Regional Commission in partnership with the Center for Rural Innovation in ValleyNet in the Broadband Innovation Grant request to conduct a broadband feasibility study in business planning for the Wyndham Regional Planning towns. Robust and reliable broadband is critical to our town. Ideas include economic development, business growth, real estate valuation, education, telehealth, stabilizing our population, and retaining our young workforce. A lack of broadband options impact us directly by making it difficult to sell homes, impede growth of local businesses, affect our children's ability to do homework, make the rollout of rural telehealth difficult, if not impossible, and make it difficult to attract young professionals and families. This grant will enable the towns of southern Vermont to focus efforts on expanding real broadband to our communities. On behalf of the Guilford Select Board, Richard Wyzanski, Select Board Chair.
I think that's a good letter.
Excellent,
Do we
very
need a- And it has it
succinct.
all in there. So do we need a motion to sign that
You
letter?
need two motions. One is to approve the letter of support, and the second is to authorize you to sign it.
So may I have a motion to approve the support?
Certainly, yes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? All right, the motion is carried, and now I need a motion to have Richard Buzansky, the chair of the select board, sign that letter. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
Would you please?
I will. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried unanimously, and I'll sign the letter.
And then I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to mention that,
Who seconded that, please? You?
I seconded Richard.
Thank you.
yeah, I'll second
Michael's.
the motion to adjourn. I won't be here at our next meeting.
I'll be in
and-
touch with you tomorrow about that.
Okay, well, I had a general question, about whether we had just made some kind of technical.
We're working on, Peter and I are working on
Okay, very
on the
good.
remote. We just had a conversation.
Okay, very good.
Electronic. Yeah.
All
So,
afternoon.
yeah, so we're trying to, and this is for all the select board members, that we should have remote access so that members, that we want the members to be here, but if a member can't be here and can attend the
2019,
meeting
Dave.
remotely, that's right. It's
Absolutely.
almost 20, yes, that's right. So
We're trying to find an inexpensive, if not free,
Yeah.
for us to do so.
And also to be able to have our listening audience see the person who is remote.
Okay.
Or the persons.
Well, I'm doing something very exciting, which is I'm going to the Rural Women's Leadership Summit in Greenville, South Carolina, and there are going to be women who live in rural areas
Well, that's
from
awesome.
all over the country. And so
exciting.
I'm really excited about what I'm going to learn and that I can bring
And
back.
carry the Guilford torch, if not the
Carry
Lincoln
the
County
Guilford
torch.
torch. So if I'm not tied up, I don't mean that. If I'm not otherwise engaged, I shall be phoning in your.
Did we have a vote on adjournment?
And no, you had a motion and a second.
All right,
Motion
so
and a
all
second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
We need to sign some of these.
Yes.
The warrants. Thank you all. And what time is it?
So the camera is
7:40.
rolling.